Hey guys, how's it going? This is EG Magnum here. I'm bringing you my 3.5 Stormbrand Scion build that uses the Slayer Leech Ascendancy with the Elementalist. You can also use other things like the Pathfinder or the Inquisitor. So, will it be viable in 3.6? Yes, the Slayer nerfs are not going to affect builds that hit a lot and can get that leech going with massive damage on multiple hits. Now for things that hit a lot slower, that you can't get that leech up all the time, that's going to feel it. Those huge crazy hits like something like Earthquake will definitely feel a nerf to this. But really, is it going to be that bad across the board? Not really. The leech as it was way overpowered. You could stand still and tank way too many things once you got to a certain amount of tank. It was crazy. It really needed to be fixed. So, you know, they got rid of All Pact. Everybody kind of freaked out about that. Now they're getting rid of this. It's kind of a thing. We'll deal with it. And really, it's fixing the game for the long term. I like it. And if they do changes like that, I'm all for it. So, the build though, Stormbrand. Wow, it exceeded my expectations tremendously. I really wasn't expecting how good Stormbrand was. It is crazy, as you can see here in these delves with level 83 monsters, sometimes walking into areas with mods that are completely insane. I have no problem with them. It is smooth. Now, I will say it did take me a little bit of time to get used to dealing with just the playstyle of it, of place, then call, place, recall, place, recall. So when you're moving between packs, sometimes you'll have to either place, like you saw there, or you can go ahead and get a recall, and then it'll kind of chain boom, 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 and keep going. With really high pack size maps, you can see this effect go. You just hit brand recall and it clears half the map for you, and you're just hearing loot off in the distance. Now, in Delve, a lot of times when there's high pack size, you'll just see it chain through the entire thing as you're going and following the cart. It's pretty crazy when that happens. It actually feels a little too overpowered, I must say. Now, will they nerf it in the coming patch? We'll see. But as it is right now, it has all the damage you need for any kind of budget build. So, it does work in 3.6, and it will have a budget version. I have that in the path of building. When I say budget, I do mean budget. I mean, like, you could get this working and probably do the entire game with it on probably less than Exalt or less than 2 Exalts. So, it's pretty good. I'm just saying, the Stormbrand damage is insane. Just wait till you see at the end. It is crazy, and a lot of my items, well, really the helmet, isn't even calculated in the damage. So, you get something close to that, really easy. You get a better belt than I have, pour, 4x into it, 5x into it. You're going to have an insane build that does everything in the game. Really easy, because just look at this. You just place the brands back on the Chimera. I just placed the brands in front of the doors and just sat in the middle and waited, and then ran over to the boss one. It was easy. Like, you play safe, you just stand out of range, you don't have to worry. Minotaur tunnels, no big deal. I see it. I'm always doing damage. I don't have to do anything. These are better than totems because they can't die. You literally place them and they attach, and you just watch the damage. Not even Syndicate can really stop you. Right here is an example where the Syndicate pops in, and it's just like, oh, no big deal. Easy mode. Here we go. Because I was even sitting there switching gems. So, I mean, it's pretty insane how good the brands are. I probably will revisit the brands, specifically Armageddon brand, next league or future league. We'll have to see what they do in the patch notes, but this is pretty crazy. I will say though, probably my only complaint, and really just to say that this is my only complaint, is that the brand recall did not feel that good when I was just starting out early levels. The cooldown on it was just a little too long, and it was a little rough to actually use. Really, you want to go for max level as soon as possible, if not getting a +1 corrupted as soon as possible. A max roll will feel pretty good once you get used to the playstyle of place. recall, place recall, and really fast moving delves. Otherwise, you can go pretty slow and really safe. So with that said, I will say this is a hardcore viable type build. Now, would I go this expensive in hardcore? No, I'd probably just do a cheap elementalist that probably has 1 to 4x budget, and you could probably do all the content in the game pretty safe. Now, I probably would go pretty crazy when it comes to fighting Uber Elder, but I would say Stormbrand would probably be one of my choices for maybe trying to push all the content in hardcore if I decide to go hardcore this coming league. It just depends on how much fun I'm having with all the extra spell changes and maybe some of the classic stuff. I've been thinking about going with Freeze Pulse. We'll see. But really, again, I spent a ton of Exalt. I had about 60 Exalt laying around. I went ahead and got a Series Acuity because that's my next build. I'll do a little build discussion on that. It's a cast on crit build, kind of interesting with Dark Pact. Also, I have the Headhunters and I've got the Unnatural Instinct. I found that as a drop and I bought the Headhunters. You don't need any of those items. I also have 2 Might of the Meeks. You can get those. They normally run about 1x each, so you can just add that to your build. That's something that you can incrementally work toward, especially if you're going around the Scion or if you're going around the Scion health wheel. That's pretty nice. You probably take this to Uber Elder for, like I said, my hardcore run. This was probably the closest to having a deathless run that I could have had. Sadly, I made some mistakes, but you know, it happens. And next time, maybe I'll try it in standard right now, see if I can get that nice, juicy, deathless run that I wanted. But anyway, guys, let's jump into the items. Here we go. To start with the items here, for damage, I went with the Shimmeron Tornado Wand. Again, Elder item, it's got a lot of damage, but you got to deal with the degen. And any of them really, if you can deal with the degen, they are crazy items really for what they are. They're not that expensive, and comparatively, the only thing that I could get more damage with or close would be a multi-modded weapon. So going with these, very cheap, and I can just take the Slayer Ascendancy Ascendant Point for the Leech. So then, with that said, I went ahead and did the Series Acuity. I've had a lot of currency, it's just kind of been like, why not spend it on something? So there you go. I did try this without the Series Acuity, so that's 15x that you don't have to spend on this build. And it works just fine through maps. The Acuity was a little bit better as far as HP per second coming back, but with using that, I used a Warlord's Mark ring to go ahead and give me the healing that I needed. This would allow me to leech beyond just my health, and the downside with this though is I didn't apply it until it hit something first, which actually became a problem on lower tier content once I did too much damage. Also, to mitigate the degen from the Shimmeron Wands is the loreweave. It is a crazy item for what it does, and if you get high rolls and everything, it is amazing. So this definitely was what I went for. Again, just passing it between builds at this point. But it's just that good of an item. The only thing that maybe keeps it from getting nerfed is the fact that there's so many variable rolls that you have to hit well just to get it to be a really good item. For the helmet, I just went with the Stormbrand penetrates 12% of branded enemies lightning resistance. Then I went ahead and crafted it with a metallic, pristine, and prismatic fossils. This went ahead and got me the life with, lucky enough, 2 resistances and the -2 lightning resistance. So that is actually a really juicy helmet. The comparable helmets at this point I think we're showing about 10 to 13x, somewhere around there. So I would definitely just buy one that you can craft. I believe this was 2x to actually buy the helmet with the enchant, or it was 1.5, somewhere around there. But go ahead and I would say get a helmet, whatever it is, and just craft it. So I was using Purity of Elements, so I went ahead and went with the All's Uprising Purity of Elements version of the amulet. So that went ahead and allowed me to use this Watcher's Eye Jewel and go ahead and take advantage of the physical converted, since I have so much elemental resistance. That way I don't have to worry about the physical damage. This made stuff like Delve pretty easy, really easy to survive with. Mark of the Shaper Ring being really good for just the sheer amount of damage that it gives, plus it's a little bit of life, so that's awesome. For boots, I went ahead, while wearing the Headhunters, having just whatever resist I needed to cap off my resist and as much health as possible. Headhunters, I just had the currency to spend, so I went ahead and got that. Otherwise, though, for the Uber Elder fight, I would have went with Kalm's Roots, and just using the build without Headhunter, go with whatever Stygian Vice. This will make finishing out Resist really easy. Try to craft it with fossils to get that elemental damage and lightning damage if you can. Sadly, I didn't get the lightning damage with it after spending several chances at it, and I just went ahead and went with lightning damage and then crafted on some increased damage. Again, just craft one of these. If you get some lucky rolls and you just want to sell it, you go ahead and sell it. If you get, say, elemental damage with attacks, that way it can make you money back or even make you money overall as a profit. Lastly, for Flask, Seething Divine Staunching, of course, as always. Chemist Silver Flask for that 30 charges, and then I went with of Heat. The Quicksilver of Adrenaline, trying to get 30%. Again, I haven't been showing this before, but just an item level 5 makes it really easy to craft one of those. And then I went with a Chemist Flask. I went with a Diamond Flask of Warding. For Uber Elder, I went with the Diamond Flask of Heat, and then just whatever came with it I just took, and then a Wise Oak for even more damage. One last thing, I do have the Unnatural Instinct as well as 2 Might of the Meeks. I will say though, I did find that I could get around 5.2 to 5.5k life and comparable damage just going with an Elementalist, or even doing a Scion without these 3 jewels. So, what gems did I go with? Well, I really didn't finish putting together the build actually for the gems, which is kind of the funny part here. But the main links here, Stormbrand linked with Lightning Pin, Conk Effect, Elemental Focus, Controlled Destruction, and Power Charge on Crit. With all the power charges, Power Charge and Crit both was utility at generating power charges for the Shimmerons, and also being a nice damage boost for the Stormbrand itself. I also used the Orb of Storms and Power Charge on Crit to also generate more power charges. And it didn't do that bad damage-wise either. With that in here, I do have Summon Lightning Golem. I had Minion and Totem Elemental Resistance support, but didn't feel that was needed. I also had Summon Ice Golem because I am an Elementalist Ascendancy from the Ascendant, and with that I had Brand Recall and then Increased Area of Effect that I was just leveling. I didn't know how Area of Effect actually worked with the brand. I'm still not exactly sure, so I'm going to have to figure that one out. If anybody knows, please put it in the comment section down below. But it really didn't feel that much difference with Conk Effect or Increased Area of Effect. So I'm not sure if that was really necessary either way. Again, it felt just as good with Conk Effect in, so I just went ahead and switched to Conk Effect the entire time. I was, again, planning on Kalm's Roots for later, so I did plan this without another 4-link here. But Purity of Elements would just go up here, and because it doesn't cost any mana, it doesn't matter where I put it, but it would just take one of these slots, probably just the Increased Area of Effect, and the Minion and Elemental Resist support would just not really matter at all. I didn't really use my golems during the Uber Elder fight anyway, and they're really for just clearing. In the helmet, I had Flame Dash and Righteous Fire with increased duration, and then the Arcane Surge would proc off the Flame Dash. The Flame Dash, you can cast a higher level Arcane Surge, so that's why Flame Dash over having it with the Orb of Storms, though the Orb of Storms would be a little bit easier to use, that way you're not forced to use the Flame Dash just to get the benefit. Lastly, in the gauntlets, Herald of Thunder, Wrath, War Banner with Enlighten. Pretty much you can use just whatever you need as utility if you need to switch anything out, or say you didn't go with the Elementalist Ascendancy. Very flexible build with having the Unnatural Instinct in the first place, and just, I mean, Stormbrand is really just OP. I mean, let's be honest here. It's pretty insane for what it is. Leveling, I started with the 2 Might of the Meek and the Unnatural Instinct, getting there as soon as possible, taking the life regen first, and then when switching to Aziri's Acuity, going with the mana nodes. Coming down and getting the Scion Will here for health is huge, and then from there beelining it to Runebinder for damage. Other than that, I started to branch over because I felt good enough with what I had, especially since I had leveling gear, to come over and just get to coordination. On the way though, I did stop and get runesmith because the utility that comes from this attachment range is insane, and also the damage from the 12% increased activation frequency is huge. Other than that, I went ahead and just kind of got whatever I needed health wise or damage wise as it kind of came about. I got the power charges as I could handle them, starting with this one to get the spell damage per power charge, and then getting the power charges as I can handle the degen. You can check that through Path of Building to find out how much degen you're going to have to deal with, and if you can sustain your health with the amount of power charges you're at. In mapping, I went ahead and got health, especially when I was starting to go into higher tier maps, and then I finished off the damage last. Really, this build didn't have to go to level 92, but I went ahead and took it there anyway. It was just insane damage, and I mean, like, just the clear was easy. Stormbrand is definitely a skill that you could take into hardcore relatively easily and do all the content with it. Okay, looking at some numbers here, we have a solid consistent damage of 341,000 DPS from the brands. With 2, that would be 680,000 DPS. This is on Shaper. And also you have no shock value coming from the Elementalist, so that would even make the damage higher. And I actually don't have the leech tick, so there we go, giving that a total of 700,000 DPS versus Shaper with 2 brands on him. Again, that would be even more with the shock effect that is not calculated right now. So overall, the leech rate that you can get from this is 2,540, with the degen rate only being 480. So this is quite a bit of health coming in. You're over a net 2,000 per second, which is a 30 your health per second. If you take a big hit, you're pretty much good to go with just the life leech itself. And because you can overleech and you're dealing so much damage, you can easily hit that cap and that threshold, and survivability with this build is pretty insane. It does get a little scary though if you aren't leeching, or if your leech does turn off because you just dealt too much damage and weren't able to get enough damage off on what mobs you had. But that's just, again, one of the problems of just having too much damage, I guess. Never thought I'd say that. But overall, as you can see here, tons of life, pretty easy build to get going. One thing I will point out though is you could get rid of the Herald of Thunder if you were doing an Elementalist without the Herald Ascendancy point, or if you were, say, doing a Scion without the Elementalist Ascendancy point, say you were doing Inquisitor, you could get rid of Herald of Thunder and take Aspect of the Spider on a ring, and that would actually give you more damage overall. Another thing that isn't being calculated either is the -9 to the lightning res, which is actually quite a bit of damage extra, because that would essentially be a more multiplier along with the shock that is not taking effect. So I think it comes to around 400,000. Also, I have none of the flask ticked, so that way, there you go. So your full damage, if you have everything up, is over 1 million damage single target on Shaper. Pretty insane. I actually do have Vol Righteous Fire on, so I probably should have turned that off. Let's see what that looks like real quick. Okay, so I forgot about is attached to an enemy. There we go. I forgot that it actually deals more damage in that case. So let's turn the flask off with that on. So now you're attached to an enemy at a consistent 435,000, which is over 800,000 DPS to Shaper single target. But let's go ahead and see what the full maxed out damage is. Okay, so with everything up, Vol Righteous Fire going, you have 925,000 DPS just for one brand, which means you have over 1.8 million DPS. But wait, there's more. The adrenaline effect, yes, it's only for a very short duration, but if you need that extra burst, you plop that banner down and you get adrenaline for just 2.5 seconds, which for 2.5 seconds you were dealing over 1 million damage with each brand, giving you 2 million damage total single target to Shaper, which is pretty insane And you can get that up for Uber Elder, you can get that up on all the ad phases, and then you can use it in between, and you can get that up before the next Shaper phases. So again, this build is pretty insane for farming Shaper or even Uber Elder. Really, I just did one run of Uber Elder, but this is definitely a build that I could easily farm Uber Elder on if I wanted to. I felt like there was no challenge at all going into Uber Elder. Really, the only deaths, as you'll see in the video, was just me doing really stupid things, like walking straight at Shaper when he just teleports, which, I mean, he's gonna throw balls, so I mean, duh. But overall, this build is really good. If I'm playing this next league or just want a build that can easily farm Uber Elder, I'll probably go with something like this, though I'll probably stay a little bit cheap and either just do a Warlord's Mark ring without the Aziri's Acuity. The reason why I had the Aziri's Acuity is my idea for my next build, which you'll see then. But really, the Aziri's Acuity was just kind of a bonus to this. It actually worked out really well, though. So if you have the currency, it can work out really well, so you can go ahead and do that if you want to. If not, you can take some regen nodes on the tree, also the regen instead of the mana, and that'll give you a huge amount of survivability as it is. So I kind of want to know what that regen actually looked like, so that would be 244, giving you a net degen of 235, and still a leech rate of 1,285. Now, when you're leeching constantly, you're only getting just over 1,000 per second without the acuity, but the thing is you're always regenning health, meaning when you take damage outside of dealing a crit, you will actually be regenning for 244 all at the same time. And lastly, on that note of saving some currency, I'm going to go ahead and say, what if you didn't have Unnatural Instinct? With everything, you're still looking at 853,000 single target, popping everything down. Might of the Meeks are only 1x, so you could actually just consistently use those if you really wanted to. So you could actually go up one more level to 93 and grab these crit nodes, and that would still get you 998,000 DPS per brand. That is, of course, everything stacked, so let's turn off everything. Okay, so single target with everything turned off consistent is still 361,000 DPS, with taking an extra level to go to level 93 and get all three of the crit multi-nodes. If it's not attached to an enemy, you still have a total of 208,000 damage. Now, let's say you went ahead and didn't have the Might of the Meeks. You were still looking at a pretty good 335,000 consistent single target damage per brand, giving you 600,000 DPS overall before anything's up, with a full burst of 725,000, and let's say you had the adrenaline with 50 stacks for the 2.5 seconds of 922,000. Still very comparable damage to actually do the entire game with all the content in it, and really there's nothing extra as far as cost going into it. So you don't really need everything that I have in the build. You don't need the acuity, you don't really need the jewels just to get everything done in the game. You can go ahead actually and use whatever rare gauntlets you want. As you can see, the health is still 5.7k, so you got enough health, you've got enough damage. It really just is a little bit better with that huge investment. But for a league starter, you could still do this build as either an elementalist, as a scion, whichever way you want to do it. I will say the elementalist will have a little bit harder time, and I probably would take the leeching ascendancy point if you went elementalist. That way you're always leeching when you have the brand on something. The thing is, then you'll have to have some kind of regen to kind of compensate for the Shimmerons dealing damage to you, at which point I probably would look into eventually replacing them with something like a multi-crafted scepter. For the Scion, your other options, again, to get a little bit more damage, you could definitely go with an Inquisitor. I'll go ahead and just show that right now real quick. So yes, I have extra skill point or whatever, but nothing actually comes from the damage. So let's see here. We have, all I need to take on is Ignite, and there you go. You can see the 30 crit multi kick in, giving you a huge amount of damage. Take off adrenaline, and taking off all buffs, 364,000 DPS. So still really good with just taking that. With the Pathfinder being the lowest numbers, but you could get more flask, therefore you could use probably something like the Vinctors and a grounding flask combo. Like I said, overall really strong build. I do this on a budget later in the league right now of probably just about 5x, but earlier on in the league it's probably going to be somewhere around 10x just to get the build put together and working really well. At that point you should be able to take on all the content in the game just fine. At this point, with the absurd amount of currency that I've put into this, it really isn't worth the marginal gain from a lot of things, although I will say the Unnatural Instinct is actually the most absurd cost that is in this as far as gain for damage and utility per cost. Might of the Meeks are always awesome anyway, and they're really not that expensive. So you could tack on 2x to either the cheap version or the expensive version, and you could still throw in 2 Might of the Meeks there. So relatively speaking, the budget is really not that bad if you wanted to start off with this. Again, you won't have Shimmerons too early, and they might be a little expensive for good rolled ones really early. But again, you can get it started with some cheap ones, and they probably will go up on starting around, I think around 10 chaos, about 10 to 20 I think at the start of the league. Can't really remember what they were when I first started looking for these, but overall at this point in the league they're really cheap. 10 chaos is pretty much what I paid for each of these, and they're pretty much max roll. Once again, I'd like to just reiterate how cheap the build can actually be as far as exalt wise. It's not that bad to get started and going. Anyway, here I'm going to go ahead and show the Uber Elder clip. It was a really easy Uber Elder, probably the easiest Uber Elder I've done so far. If this was going to be my deathless run, this build has been the best one to do it with. I really want to kind of try it again and get my deathless run. I believe I can. I did just walk into some balls like I said earlier, and then really the only death that I could have prevented, which I guess I could have log out macroed it if I really wanted to survive it, but the only death that wasn't me doing something stupid was when Elder did the suck and Shaper did his slam at the same time. I tried to flame dash out of it, and before I could even flame dash I was hit. So that was the only death that wasn't me doing something just really bad outright. Other than that, the other deaths, I think there were 2 or 3, they were really just preventable of just not being bad. So all I need to do is just get good. But anyway, here's the clip. Thanks for watching. I stream on Twitch. Leave a like, comment, and all that good stuff. Definitely, if you guys have had any experiences with Stormbrand. Also, again, the comment on whether or not Area of Effect actually does anything. But anyway, again, thanks for watching. Peace. Okay. Yeah, if any of the builds I've done so far is going to get it, it's going to be it. Oh. No! Damn it. There goes the deathless run. Balls. Hey Kern, what's up, dude? Oh. Man, I feel like I should just restart this. Oh man, because I know I can get it done. It's just now, it's just like, Oh well. Oh no, he's sucking. Oh. Whoop, whoop. Oh shit! Oh come on. Oh man. Yeah, doing good, man. Just trying to get this kill here. Was hoping it would be deathless, but oh come on, with the suck too. Okay, he's down there. Okay, third phase. Oh. Nope, that was the suck. Okay, that was just poorly timed. Okay, so I'll give it that one. That was not that. Whoop, that was me not just being dumb. Okay, where are you at? There he is. Oh, 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 oh. Whoa, he's dead. Okay, I probably should just run around. I had time. Oh well. I already missed my deathless run. Let's see, what items am I getting? Okay. Well, I'll use that on the next version of this character. If I get time to come back for that.